So the first thing you want to do is remove that little cap so you can get access to the axle nut with your wheel on. Then you loosen that and you loosen your lug nuts. You can actually take the axle nut all the way off. Then you jack the car up and take your tire off. Once your car's jacked up and the tire is off, you want to hit that nut right there. And you want to hit this wheel speed sensor. And if you're doing your axle, honestly, you don't even need to take off your brake caliper and the brake caliper bracket. But I'm doing the caliper job, so I'm showing you how to take that off also. But these screws here, if you wanted to just do your axle, you really don't have to remove those. You don't really have to remove this. As long as you take the wheel speed sensor out, and that other little nut off at the top, the first one I pointed to, you're good. But if you're doing a rotor and brake job, you can take that off also. Then you want to hit these two nuts right here. The axle nuts. I mean the shock nuts. And when you hit that and you take it off, this is how you should look right here. And my brake caliper is off, but it could have still been on there. But since I'm doing rotors also, I took it off. But then you'll just knock your axle out of that housing right there. You put something to the front of the axle and you tap it. And you tap it out of the housing. If it doesn't move, the axle doesn't move, put everything back, take it to a professional. But if it moves, it'll come out. Then once it's out, you go under the car, and you're going to remove that clip. See how it's out already. So you're going to take that clip out of there. You're going to squeeze it with some pliers. Then you're going to remove this nut. And then you're going to take a pry bar or something that you can get in there that's going to give you some room to pry the axle out. And you're just going to pry it out. It should slide right out of there with the nut and the clip off. And once it pops out, that's basically your axle job. You just put everything back and return. But since we're doing brakes and rotors, I'm going to show you how to do the brakes now. If you were just doing brakes, you could just loosen up that one nut there. But if you're doing brakes and rotors, you're going to need to take your caliper bracket off too. So you're going to need to remove those two nuts also. But see, once you remove this nut, your caliper flips up. Once your caliper flips up, you can squeeze the piston back in, or you can push the caliper out of the housing. You see how it's up like that? If you just push it towards the shock, that whole thing will come out and leave it exposed like this. And then you would just take those two nuts off, put your rotor on, put those two nuts back, slide the caliper back in, and then your brake and rotor job is completely done. It's that easy.